The Miami sun blazed down on the sleek, modern facade of the One Paraíso building in Edgewater, Florida. Inside one of its luxurious condos, a scene of unimaginable horror was unfolding. A scene that would soon captivate the nation with its blend of glamour, tragedy, and dark intrigue. Courtney Clenny, an OnlyFans model whose online persona exuded confidence and allure, was in the throes of a panic. Her boyfriend, Christian Abumsali, lay bleeding on the floor, the life seeping out of him with each passing second. Clenny's hands and clothes were stained with his blood as she frantically tried to stem the flow, her mind racing back to the moments that led to this grisly scene. Stay with us as we unravel the twisted motives and haunting aftermath of this gruesome tale. You won't believe what happens next. Welcome to Spooky Stories. I'm Milo, your guide through the chilling and the unknown. Here, we dive into terrifying tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Join our community of thrill seekers, and let's explore the darkness together. The couple's relationship had always been tempestuous. Neighbors often heard their fights, loud and explosive, echoing through the pristine hallways of their high-rise residence. To the outside world, Clenny and Abumsali were a picture-perfect couple. Their social media accounts filled with glamorous photos of vacations, romantic dinners, and tender moments. But behind closed doors, the reality was far more sinister. From the outside looking in, Courtney Clenny and Christian Abumsali appeared to be living an enviable life. Their social media profiles were carefully curated to showcase a fairy tale romance filled with luxury and passion. Followers saw them enjoying exotic vacations, indulging in fine dining, and celebrating life with friends in posh locales. Each post was a carefully staged vignette designed to project an image of perfection, drawing admiration and envy from those who scrolled through their feeds. The vibrancy and apparent joy of their online presence painted a starkly different picture from the chaos and strife that marred their private interactions. However, the polished images and cheerful captions masked a relationship fraught with volatility and conflict. Behind the scenes, the couple's dynamic was anything but harmonious. Neighbors frequently heard their explosive arguments reverberating through the walls of their upscale condo, the shouts and sounds of altercations breaking the tranquility of their high-rise residence. The arguments were not mere lovers' quarrels, but intense and heated exchanges that left those who overheard them concerned and uneasy. Reports of domestic disturbances became a common occurrence, with building staff and residents growing increasingly aware of the turmoil brewing in Clenny and Abumsali's home. In private, the relationship was marked by cycles of aggression and reconciliation, creating an environment of fear and instability. Friends and family of the couple, although not privy to the full extent of the dysfunction, began to notice signs of distress. Clenny's behavior grew more erratic, and Abumsali's demeanor shifted from confident to increasingly anxious. Incidents of physical violence and emotional abuse were not isolated events but part of a disturbing pattern that intensified over time. Despite their attempts to maintain an outward appearance of a loving partnership, the cracks in their facade were widening, setting the stage for the tragic events that would eventually unfold. On April 3, 2022, the facade cracked irreparably. According to Clenny, the argument had escalated beyond their usual shouting matches. She claimed that, in a desperate bid to defend herself, she grabbed a knife and threw it at Abumsali from across the room. The blade found its mark, severing an artery and leaving him gasping for breath on the floor. That evening began like many others, but the tension between Clenny and Abumsali was palpable. As the argument intensified, the walls of their luxurious condo seemed to close in on them. Clenny later recounted that the fight reached a fever pitch, with accusations and insults flying, each more cutting than the last. Desperation took hold, and in what she described as a frantic attempt to protect herself from Abumsali's rage, she reached for the knife. Her version of events painted a picture of self-defense, a spur-of-the-moment act driven by fear for her own life. However, the gruesome aftermath told a more harrowing story. The knife, aimed hastily across the room, had struck Abumsali with deadly precision. He collapsed, clutching at the wound as blood poured from the severed artery. The pristine floor of their upscale apartment quickly became a scene of horror. Clenny, her hands now stained with blood, reportedly tried to stem the flow, her panic growing as she realized the gravity of what had happened. Each second stretched into an eternity as she grappled with the sight of her boyfriend's life slipping away. The minutes that followed were chaotic. Amid the blood and panic, Clenny called for help, but the delay in summoning emergency services was critical. Neighbors who heard the commotion had already alerted building security, who arrived to a scene they would not soon forget. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but it was too late. Abumsali's life could not be saved, and the dreamlike quality of their public personas shattered completely. The facade of a glamorous couple living an enviable life was obliterated, replaced by the stark reality of a fatal encounter that would dominate headlines and alter lives forever. However, the evidence painted a different picture. Medical examiners noted that the nature of Abumsali's wound was inconsistent with Clenny's account of throwing the knife from a distance. This discrepancy was just the beginning of the unraveling of Clenny's story. As investigators delved deeper into the details of the incident, it became increasingly apparent that Clenny's version of events did not align with the physical evidence. The medical examiner's report highlighted that the trajectory and depth of the wound indicated a forceful, direct stab rather than an accidental throw from across the room. The knife had entered Abumsali's body at an angle and with a depth that suggested close proximity and intent. This critical detail cast significant doubt on Clenny's claim of self-defense and initiated a series of inquiries that would further discredit her account. Further complicating Clenny's story were the numerous inconsistencies and contradictions that emerged during the investigation. Witnesses, including neighbors and building staff, provided testimonies that painted a picture of a relationship marred by frequent and escalating violence, often initiated by Clenny. Surveillance footage from the building's security cameras captured various altercations, some physical, where Clenny appeared to be the aggressor. Additionally, digital evidence such as text messages and call logs revealed a pattern of abusive behavior, corroborating the accounts of those who had witnessed the couple's tumultuous interactions. The unraveling of Clenny's narrative was compounded by her own actions and statements following the incident. During police interrogations, she exhibited signs of panic and distress, but also made remarks that seemed to deflect responsibility and shift blame onto external factors, such as the delay in emergency response. Her behavior in the immediate aftermath, her call to her mother for advice rather than dialing 911 immediately, and the attempts to portray herself as the victim, further undermined her credibility. Each piece of evidence, each conflicting statement, built a case that suggested premeditation rather than an act of desperate self-defense. The prosecution seized on these discrepancies, crafting a compelling argument that Courtney Clenny was not the frightened girlfriend she claimed to be, but rather the instigator of a tragic and fatal altercation. In the days following the incident, videos surfaced that added fuel to the fire. Footage from an elevator in their apartment complex showed Clenny physically attacking Abumsali months before the fatal stabbing. Neighbors and building staff recounted multiple instances of domestic disturbances, each more violent than the last. Clenny had even been arrested for domestic battery in Las Vegas the previous year, further highlighting the volatile nature of their relationship. The release of these videos shattered any lingering illusions about the true nature of Clenny and Abumsali's relationship. The elevator footage was particularly damning, capturing a moment of unprovoked aggression where Clenny could be seen hitting and shoving Abumsali, who appeared to be trying to de-escalate the situation. This incident, which took place months before the fatal stabbing, provided a chilling glimpse into the persistent cycle of abuse. Friends and family who had only seen the couple's carefully curated social media posts were stunned, as the footage contradicted the idyllic image they had been presented with. Neighbors and building staff, who had previously reported multiple instances of loud and violent confrontations, felt a grim validation as their accounts were substantiated by the new evidence. They recalled the fear and helplessness that accompanied hearing screams and crashes through the walls, each incident more alarming than the last. Despite the numerous complaints, the true extent of the violence was only coming to light now. The couple's disputes had become so notorious within the building that managers were reportedly moving to evict them due to the frequent disturbances. Further tarnishing Clenny's defense was her arrest for domestic battery in Las Vegas the previous year. This incident, where she was accused of assaulting a bumsily in a hotel room, painted a clear pattern of her aggressive behavior. Law enforcement records from Texas also indicated that police had been called to their home on several occasions due to domestic disputes. These revelations portrayed a relationship marred by violence and control, starkly contrasting Clenny's claims of self-defense. As the investigation continued, the mounting evidence of her abusive behavior significantly weakened her narrative, pointing instead to a history of volatile and dangerous conduct that culminated in the tragic events of April 3rd. The interrogation room at the Miami-Dade police station was stark and cold. Clenny sat across from the detectives, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. When they informed her that a bumsily had died from his injuries, she broke down in tears, gasping for air as the reality of the situation sank in. "This is not real," she kept repeating, her voice trembling. She asked for a hug, a request that was awkwardly granted by one of the detectives. The starkness of the interrogation room only amplified the tension and gravity of the situation. The walls, bare and unwelcoming, seemed to close in on Courtney Clenny as she faced the detectives. Her initial demeanor was one of disbelief, her eyes wide and her face pale. The harsh fluorescent lights cast sharp shadows, highlighting the strain and exhaustion etched into her features. Every tick of the clock on the wall seemed to stretch the moments as the detectives prepared to deliver the news that would shatter her world. When the detectives finally spoke, informing her that Christian Abumsely had succumbed to his injuries, the reaction was immediate and visceral. Clenny's facade of composure crumbled as she doubled over, tears streaming down her face. Her gasps for air were loud and ragged, echoing in the cold room. "This is not real," she kept murmuring, her voice breaking with each repetition. The detectives watched, a mixture of professional detachment and human empathy in their expressions. It was a pivotal moment, not just in the interrogation, but in the entire unfolding tragedy. In her desperation and overwhelming grief, Clenny reached out for a semblance of comfort. She asked for a hug, a plea that was met with a moment of hesitation. One of the detectives stepped forward, awkwardly fulfilling the request. It was a brief and uncomfortable embrace, more symbolic than soothing, underscoring the profound isolation and despair Clenny felt. This interaction, though small, highlighted the complex emotions at play in the wake of the incident. Clenny's need for human connection, even from those investigating her, painted a poignant picture of a woman grappling with the irreversible consequences of a moment of violence. As the investigation progressed, Clenny's narrative of self-defense began to crumble. Prosecutors released a series of damning videos showing her verbally and physically abusing Abumsely. In one clip, recorded by Abumsely himself, Clenny can be heard calling him derogatory names and demanding that he let her slap him. The toxic dynamic between the two was laid bare for the world to see. The first video released by prosecutors was a stark contrast to Clenny's portrayal of herself as a victim. The footage, taken by Abumsely on his phone, showed Clenny berating him with a string of derogatory and humiliating insults. Her tone was aggressive and unyielding, leaving no doubt about the power dynamics at play. In the video, she could be heard demanding that he let her slap him, a chilling indication of the physical abuse that was part of their daily lives. This video alone began to erode the credibility of her self-defense claim, painting her instead as the aggressor in their fraught relationship. Subsequent videos further reinforced this narrative. Surveillance footage from the building's elevator captured Clenny physically attacking Abumsali on multiple occasions. These clips showed her pushing, hitting, and shouting at him, while he appeared to try and avoid confrontation, often with his hands raised in a defensive posture. Neighbors and building staff corroborated these incidents, recounting how they had heard and sometimes even witnessed these violent exchanges. Each piece of evidence added another layer to the disturbing portrait of a relationship characterized by one-sided aggression and abuse. The release of these videos had a profound impact on public perception and the legal proceedings. They provided an unfiltered glimpse into the toxic and abusive nature of Clenny and Abumsali's relationship, directly contradicting her claims of being the victim. The visual evidence, combined with testimonies from those who had witnessed the couple's tumultuous interactions, created a compelling case for the prosecution. It became increasingly difficult for Clenny to maintain her narrative of self-defense as the world saw the truth, a pattern of behavior that suggested premeditated aggression rather than a desperate act of survival. The toxic dynamic between Clenny and Abumsali, once hidden behind closed doors, was now laid bare for all to see, fundamentally shifting the trajectory of the case. The evidence against Clenny continued to mount. She had been on the phone with her mother during the stabbing, and neighbors had reported hearing the altercation. Despite the chaos, Clenny waited precious minutes before calling 911, a delay that may have sealed Abumsali's fate. In the background of the emergency call, Abumsali's voice could be heard, weakly stating that he was dying. As the investigation unfolded, the timeline of events on the fateful night became crucial in understanding what transpired. Clenny's call to her mother during the heated argument added a layer of complexity to the case. The phone conversation suggested that instead of seeking immediate medical help for Abumsali, Clenny was more focused on discussing the situation with her mother. This delay was critical, as every second counted when it came to treating Abumsali's life-threatening injury. The content of the call, while not fully disclosed, hinted at a possible attempt to navigate the aftermath rather than address the immediate emergency. The testimonies of neighbors further underscored the severity of the situation. Multiple neighbors reported hearing loud, violent altercations coming from Clenny and Abumsali's apartment. On the night of the stabbing, these reports were even more frantic and detailed. Neighbors described hearing screams, thuds, and desperate cries for help. One neighbor recounted the chilling moment they heard Abumsali's voice, weak and fraught with pain, pleading for his life. These eyewitness accounts painted a vivid picture of a night that escalated from a domestic dispute to a deadly confrontation, with Clenny's actions under intense scrutiny. The 911 call itself became a pivotal piece of evidence. When Clenny finally called emergency services, the recording captured a chaotic scene. In the background, Abumsali's faint voice could be heard, making a haunting statement. He was dying. This auditory evidence starkly contradicted Clenny's later claims of immediate and frantic attempts to save him. Instead, it highlighted a critical delay that might have been the difference between life and death. The prosecution argued that this delay was indicative of Clenny's culpability, suggesting that her priorities in those crucial moments were misaligned with the urgent need to save Abumsali's life. This delay, combined with her overall behavior, significantly undermined her defense and painted a damning picture of her role in the tragedy. Clenny's mother, in a text message following the incident, advised her daughter not to speak to the investigators without an attorney. This advice, coupled with Clenny's initial attempts to deflect responsibility, painted a picture of desperation and guilt. The courtroom was packed when Clenny faced her charges. The prosecution presented a compelling case for second-degree murder, arguing that Clenny had been the aggressor in the relationship. The defense maintained that Clenny had acted in self-defense, a claim that was increasingly difficult to believe given the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. In a shocking twist, the judge denied Clenny bail, citing the risk of flight and the severity of the charges. The decision was met with a mix of relief and anger from the public, many of whom had followed the case with bated breath. As Clenny awaited her trial, the story continued to captivate the nation. It was a tale of beauty and brutality, love and hatred, life and death. The glamorous veneer of Clenny's online persona had been stripped away, revealing a dark and troubled reality beneath. The arrest of Courtney Clenny's parents added a surprising and dramatic twist to an already sensational case. Authorities took them into custody following allegations that they had attempted to obstruct the investigation into Christian Abumsali's death. Evidence emerged that they had communicated extensively with Clenny both before and after the fatal incident, providing her with advice that might have influenced her actions during those critical moments. This involvement raised serious questions about their role in the aftermath and whether they had sought to shield their daughter from legal repercussions. Investigators scrutinized the phone records and text messages exchanged between Clenny and her parents, revealing a pattern of involvement that went beyond typical parental support. On the night of the stabbing, Clenny's mother allegedly advised her to remain silent until she had legal representation, a directive that may have contributed to the delay in calling 911. This advice, coupled with other communications that suggested a coordinated effort to manage the situation, painted a picture of obstruction. The legal implications of these actions were significant, leading to charges that they had attempted to interfere with the justice process. The community's reaction to the arrest of Clenny's parents was mixed, with some expressing sympathy for a family in turmoil, while others saw it as a necessary step to ensure accountability. The charges against them underscored the seriousness with which the authorities were treating the case, emphasizing that no one, regardless of their relationship to the accused, was above the law. The parents' involvement, whether out of a misguided sense of protection or deliberate intent to obstruct, complicated an already tragic and convoluted case, ensuring that the legal battle ahead would be both intense and highly publicized. In the end, the case of Courtney Clenny and Christian Abumsali was a tragic reminder of the dangers of toxic relationships and the fine line between love and violence. It was a story that would not soon be forgotten, etched into the annals of true crime history as one of the most sensational and heartbreaking cases of our time. Meet Sarah. Like many of us, she used to dread bedtime, hours spent tossing and turning, waking up groggy and irritable, and worst of all, her relentless snoring that not only disturbed her sleep, but her partner's as well. Desperate for a solution, Sarah tried everything. New mattresses, white noise machines, even sleeping pills. Nothing worked until she discovered our breathing for sleep routine. One particularly frustrating night, Sarah stumbled upon an article about the power of breathing to improve sleep. Skeptical but willing to try anything, she read about our breathing for sleep routine, a simple, scientifically backed method designed to clear sinuses, enhance breathing, and eliminate oxygen blockades. It promised to guide users through a simple breathing routine for the best sleep of their lives. Intrigued, she decided to give it a shot. As she began the routine, Sarah immediately felt her sinuses clear. She followed the step-by-step guide, learning how to breathe deeply and correctly. Within minutes, she noticed a significant difference. Her breathing was smoother, more relaxed. That night, she fell asleep faster than she had in years and, incredibly, stayed asleep all night. One of the most astonishing benefits was the end of her snoring. The routine included a simple breathing hack that stopped her snoring in minutes. Sarah learned that her habit of mouth breathing was activating her survival mode, preventing her from achieving truly restful sleep. By switching to nasal breathing, she deactivated this mode and allowed her body to fully relax. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. She couldn't remember the last time she felt so well rested. Her partner noticed the difference too. No more middle-of-the-night disruptions from her snoring. The transformation was remarkable, and Sarah knew she had found something special. Sarah's story is not unique. Many others have discovered the life-changing benefits of our breathing for sleep routine. Imagine falling asleep quickly, sleeping soundly through the night, and waking up feeling fully rested. No more snoring, no more grogginess, just deep, restorative sleep. Are you ready to transform your sleep like Sarah did? Our breathing for sleep routine is easy to follow and starts working immediately. Clear your sinuses, enhance your breathing, and remove oxygen blockades with our guided routine. Say goodbye to snoring and hello to the best sleep of your life. Check out the link for this wonder in the description and the comments.